For most of human history, we were not alone. 45,000 years ago, a small group of Homo sapiens crossed the cold plains of Eurasia. They carried children, tools, food, and something even more valuable, knowledge. But the land ahead of them was not empty. From a rocky ridge, another kind of human may already have been watching. Neanderthals had lived in this world for hundreds of thousands of years. They knew its winters, its animals, its caves, and every dangerous season in between. And Neanderthals were not the only ones. Farther east lived Denisovan-related populations. On distant islands, other human lineages still survived. The world once held several different kinds of humans at the same time. That changes the story completely. Human evolution was never a straight march from primitive to advanced. It was a branching tree. Populations separating, adapting, disappearing, and sometimes meeting again. Neanderthals lived across Europe and Western Asia. Denisovan-related groups ranged across parts of Asia. Homo erectus survived late on Java. Homo floresiensis lived on floors. Homo luzonensis lived in the Philippines. They did not all meet. They did not all live at the same time. But together, they reveal one startling truth. Homo sapiens entered a world that was already human. So where did our own branch begin? The earliest known stages of Homo sapiens reach back more than 300,000 years in Africa. At Jebel Irhoud, in present-day Morocco, researchers found human fossils beside stone tools and evidence of fire. But these people were not simply modern humans wearing ancient clothing. Their faces looked relatively familiar, while parts of their skulls still carried older features. In other words, our species did not appear in one sudden moment. The human face, brain case, and body changed at different speeds across different populations. Evolution was not a transformation scene. It was a long, uneven process. Other fossils deepen the mystery. Homo I, found in Ethiopia, is older than roughly 233,000 years. The Hertu fossils show Homo sapiens in eastern Africa around 160,000 years ago. These discoveries are spread across enormous distances. That makes the idea of one perfect birthplace of humanity difficult to defend. Our species may have formed through several African populations, sometimes separated, sometimes connected, and occasionally exchanging genes. Homo sapiens was not born in a single village. It emerged from a network, and eventually, some of those populations began moving beyond Africa. But this did not happen only once. Early Homo sapiens reached the Levant long before the expansion that later populated much of the world. A controversial fossil from Greece may point to an even earlier movement toward Europe. Yet many of these early dispersals seem to have faded. Some groups disappeared. Others may have returned. Most left little ancestry in people living outside Africa today. Then, something changed. From around 70,000 years ago, Homo sapiens began appearing in a wider range of environments. Forests, grasslands, dry interiors, coastal zones. Places that demanded different food, different tools, and different survival strategies. This flexibility may have mattered more than any single invention. Around 50,000 years ago, a major expansion carried the ancestors of many living populations across Eurasia. They moved farther, established new communities, and entered landscapes already occupied by other humans. And there, they met the Neanderthals. Popular culture turned Neanderthals into slow, brutal cave dwellers. Archaeology tells a much more interesting story. They were skilled hunters. They shaped effective stone tools. They controlled fire. They understood difficult environments well enough to survive repeated cold periods across Eurasia. At one site in France, researchers found plant fibers twisted into a 3-ply cord. It looked simple, but it required planning, material knowledge, and several precise steps. Other evidence suggests something even more human. Some badly injured Neanderthals survived for years. Whatever their communities looked like, at least some members appear to have received support when survival alone would have been difficult. So the question becomes harder. If Neanderthals were capable, experienced, and socially connected, why did they disappear? First, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals did more than avoid or compete with each other. Genetic evidence shows that they interbred. They met closely enough to have children. Some early Homo sapiens individuals had Neanderthal ancestors only a few generations earlier. There was no absolute wall between them. But interbreeding alone does not explain what happened. One of the most important clues may be population size. Many Neanderthal communities appear to have been small, and when a population is small, ordinary problems become dangerous. A harsh winter can remove experienced hunters. A landslide can block a route. The loss of only a few adults can reduce the next generation. A broken connection between groups can mean fewer partners, fewer tools, and less shared knowledge. Small populations do not need one enormous disaster to collapse. Several smaller problems can be enough. Climate added more pressure. But not in one simple way. Eurasia changed repeatedly. Grasslands expanded. Forests retreated. Animals moved. Water and shelter shifted. Some regions remained livable. Others became unstable. The same climate event could be manageable for one community and devastating for another. Then came competition. Homo sapiens and Neanderthals may have hunted the same animals, used the same river valleys, and searched for the same sources of stone. But competition did not require a continent-wide war. It could happen quietly. One group arrives first. One group has more connections. One group recovers after a bad season. The other does not. Technology may have helped. But there is no known superweapon that explains everything. Neanderthals also possessed effective tools. The larger difference may have been the system around those tools. How far could knowledge travel? How quickly could a failed hunt be replaced? Could one camp receive help from another? Could materials, partners, and information move across wider distances? In some regions, Homo sapiens may have maintained larger and more flexible networks. And when conditions became difficult, those networks may have acted like insurance. But even that is only part of the story. Some Neanderthal communities disappeared. Some may have been absorbed into expanding Homo sapiens populations. Some survived longer in certain regions than in others. There was probably no final battle, no single winter, no single invention, no single victory. Instead, there were thousands of encounters, migrations, failures, recoveries, and mixed families, spread across generations. By roughly 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals had disappeared as a distinct population, but they did not vanish without a trace. Many people living outside Africa carry a small amount of Neanderthal ancestry. Later migrations also carried some of that ancestry back into Africa, making the real picture far more complicated than a simple divide between continents. Denisovan-related ancestry survives too, especially in parts of Asia and Oceania. One of the most remarkable examples is found among Tibetan populations. A Denisovan-related genetic variant is associated with adaptation to high altitude, where oxygen levels make survival more difficult. An extinct human population may still be helping living humans breathe. So why did Homo sapiens become the last surviving human lineage? Not because every Homo sapiens individual was stronger, not because Neanderthals were unintelligent, and not because one weapon changed history overnight. The answer was probably a combination: larger populations, wider connections, ecological flexibility, accumulated knowledge, movement between regions, and the ability to recover when one community failed. And then there was chance. A storm strikes one valley and misses another. A route opens. A route closes. One small population loses too many people. A larger network absorbs the same shock and continues. Survival is not always proof of superiority. Sometimes it is the result of strength, connection, circumstance, and luck working together. Homo sapiens became the last surviving human lineage, but we did not leave the others completely behind. They remain in stone tools, fossils, ancient DNA, and in questions we may never fully answer. We are the last, but we were never truly alone.